Here we have a look at vehicles crossing a lane on the same side of the road, in other words, traveling in the same direction. In the first part of the video, by vehicles entering from a side road, and then in the latter portion of the video, we have a look at vehicles crossing a lane by exiting into a side road. So here we have the scenario where a vehicle creeps around the corner into the path of the oncoming traffic, and I believe in some states in the United States that this is legal to do so, even if there is a red traffic light for the red vehicle, that it's still legal. Nonetheless, whether it's legal or not, we need to be cautious of persons doing that, being oblivious to any oncoming traffic. And so in this particular case, the red driver just pulls ahead of faster moving traffic and results in an accident. So here we've got a real life example. And where we see a situation such as this, where there are a number of vehicles spread throughout this intersection, know that a person's attention, a driver's attention, would be divided, having to try and take note of all the different vehicles traveling in different directions. And because of that, not being able to give proper attention to you traveling along the main section of the road. And so we see this is likely the scenario that takes place over here. This vehicle, now entering from a side road, crossing over the lane, would more than likely have had his attention focused on this vehicle here to see what he's going to do before crossing. And so as a result of that, wasn't paying attention to the camera that's coming down the main section of the road. Similar situation, we have a vehicle entering from a side road, creeping around the corner. Maybe the driver's attention is focused on the bus, and so doesn't give proper attention to any oncoming traffic, creeps around the road. And notice also here that we've got this motorcyclist that could also have occupied the driver's attention. So between the bus and the motorcyclist, not really taking note of any oncoming traffic. Crosses the lane and results in an accident. In the first part of this video, we had a look at vehicles crossing a lane or changing a lane by entering from a side road. In this latter portion, we're having a look at vehicles crossing a lane or changing lane by exiting to a side road or moving to the side of the road for whatever reason. This happens when there's a multi-lane road traveling in the same direction and the fending vehicle is in the wrong lane in order to move to the side of the road or to go down a side road. So this is what takes place over here. The driver of the red vehicle in the wrong lane, moving across the path of the green vehicle, and results in a collision. Real life example of this. So we've got the driver of this white vehicle seeing that there's a parking spot on the side of the road in the wrong lane to come down, is oblivious of any oncoming traffic, and so collides into an oncoming vehicle. Here we have an intersection, and there are 2 points to take note of here. The driver in the background approaches the intersection at a high speed, and so that doesn't leave much room for error or to try and avoid any collision. So that's a 1 point. Never enter an intersection at speed. Always slow down when entering an intersection, provided, of course, that there are no vehicles behind you that are traveling at speed. And so you don't want to cause an incident by slowing down too rapidly, but try to enter an intersection at a much slower speed. And then secondly, the driver of this vehicle should have noticed that the vehicle ahead is traveling a lot slower. And so that would pose a danger if this driver decides to actually cut across his path. So this is exactly what takes place over here. And we have the resultant collision. In this situation, a bit of an odd setup. So we've got a pillar which actually divides the two oncoming lanes. We've got a vehicle that travels down this side of the lane, another vehicle that you can't see behind the pillar, also coming in the same direction and deciding to exit the road. But because of the pillar, the visibility is obscured, and so the driver coming around the pillar doesn't see this oncoming vehicle. So the motorcyclists are a bit fortunate in this situation. So we won't often find a setup such as this, but the point is that if there's anything blocking your visibility wanting to exit a road and you're in the wrong lane, always make sure that you can see before carrying out any such maneuver. This is similar to the previous video with the intersection. We see this vehicle at the back traveling at speed, a vehicle ahead of him traveling a lot slower, the driver being oblivious of him, indicating to turn left, which, just to repeat again, having your indicator on to turn doesn't give you the right to turn. You should still have acted with caution, but doesn't do so, crosses the path of the black vehicle, and we have the collision. So here we're having a look at a situation similar to the previous animation, but notice the difference here is that we've got these vehicles ahead. So there might be a backlog of traffic, and so a long line of traffic ahead of these approaching vehicles, and so the driver of the red vehicle, seeing that there's this backlog of traffic, decides instead to try and take a shortcut to miss the traffic, and because of that cuts across the path of the green vehicle. So in such a situation where there might be a compelling reason for a driver to change their mind, then just be more cautious of that, because that increases the likelihood that the driver is going to make a last minute or last second decision. So yeah, we've got exactly that scenario. In the left lane, there's a whole line of traffic here ahead. So as the camera comes approaching, decides to take the more open lane, but the driver who's right at the back here decides he's not going to hang on behind all this traffic and rather slip down a side street. But as he does so, he cuts across the path of the camera, and there's that collision. So yeah, we've got this vehicle, the driver realizing maybe he's bit short of gas or petrol, and so needs to pull into the gas station over here, and cuts across the path of vehicles traveling down this lane. So always look out for any drivers that may have some or other reason to cut across your lane in order to exit the road. So here we have the driver once again in the wrong lane in order to exit the road, and traveling at a bit of a speed, but very close to the camera's vehicle. In fact, this looks, just because of the elevation, like it might be a truck or a bus. And so that makes it even more dangerous for this driver to cut across the path of this vehicle if it's a larger vehicle, and yet still does so thinking that he can make it in time. So this we can describe as nothing other than just being stupid. So yeah, situation with the driver once again in the wrong lane in order to exit the road. Very hasty, trying to get ahead of the traffic and maybe take a shortcut down the road there, not realizing that the driver of the green vehicle actually wanted to continue straight, and so cuts across his path, and we have that collision. In this particular clip, there is a bit of space between the blue vehicle, who's wanting to turn down the side street, but actually miscalculates. So even though he's ahead of this white vehicle, he's too slow in actually making the turn down the side street, and because of that, the white vehicle now collides with him. So here we have a driver, which you can't see, just in front of this particular vehicle, was wanting to go across the road, but decides to change his mind instead and cuts across the road. So just watch out for indecisiveness of other drivers, and likewise for yourself. There's a separate video that I have which actually deals with this, but one needs to be predictable, and so you've got to act decisively. When you're hesitant or you're unpredictable, it actually makes it difficult for other drivers to try and determine what your decisions are going to be, and so that increases the likelihood of there being an accident. Now, in this particular clip, we have this silver vehicle that's going to want to turn off the road. It's also a little bit of a distance, so in the wrong lane. Now, as we progress this video, there's a vehicle that comes down the left side here. So it sees that there's a bit of slower traffic ahead and decides now to get into the faster lane, so moves across to the right-hand lane. But the driver of the silver vehicle probably, or very possibly, had a look in his rear view mirror, saw that there was enough of a gap here, and so thinks that it's safe or it's clear to go ahead and actually cross over into this little empty bay over here, but doesn't think that the driver of this vehicle, if he can see this vehicle, is actually going to occupy that space. So he thinks it's clear to go, but it wasn't, and so the vehicles collide. In this particular clip, I've included it because this vehicle, once again in the wrong lane, but nonetheless there's enough space between this vehicle and the camera's vehicle in order to cut across into a bit of a side street over here, but not realizing then that there's going to be a pedestrian in the way. And so as a result of that, I couldn't continue into this little parking area or the side street, and so he's forced to slow down. And so as he does so, he actually now blocks the camera's vehicle, and the camera, traveling at a little bit of a speed, isn't able to stop in time, and so collides with the vehicle ahead of him. So just be careful if you're trying to make a hasty exit off the road, that there's nothing to block your path, because this would then mean that you have to slow down into the lane of oncoming traffic, and that could be a bit dangerous, as we can see here. So I've included this clip, this animation, which is similar to the previous one. The difference is that I've included a solid white line here. And so as we're driving along, never assume that because there's a solid white line that it's safe to proceed. Just having a solid white line doesn't mean that a driver who's not obedient to the rules of the road is not going to cross over the solid white line. And so that's what we're demonstrating in this animation. It's a real life example of that, solid white line here. And so the driver crosses. You see it's at a point where it's solid for this particular driver. So not allowed to cross, but does so nonetheless. So just to repeat the point, we cannot assume that because there's a solid line that it's just safe or clear for us to proceed as usual. We've got to expect that people will disobey the rules of the road and cross over such a line. Please like, subscribe, and get notified.